to the BOP. My name is Karan Ashley. You are watching the BLERD official podcast. I mean, you know what? It has been technical difficulty central, but we're here. We are here and we're excited. And oh my gosh, I have to introduce my co-host, Hilton George. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Haven't seen y'all all week. And now we get an opportunity to talk about some cool stuff. I've been holding my breath. I've been sitting on my hands. I've been trying not to testify in the church about this great new show that we're going to talk about today. So I'm super excited to bring y'all in and have this chop up.
Hilton, you got us into this trouble. This was a show you suggested to me, just like low key was like, oh, have you seen this? You should watch it. And I was like, okay, gave it a whirl. And I'm blown away. But before we get into that, Christi Renee, how are you doing? Looking beautiful as ever.
Oh, thank you.
She got that special effect with her shirt too. You see that? You see that little special effect with
I know,
her shirt?
it's hypnotizing us.
Look away.
I know. I'm Mark Spector.
Look away. Yes. I am great. I'm excited to be here, and I get this, ladies and gentlemen, all my friends, my BLERDs, all y'all out there. Listen, I'm up to speed with these two. I'm not having to play catch up this week.
What?
Boom, pal. Thank you. Give me the bear again.
Booyah. Booyah. She is the boss. So what we are referring to, guys, I mean, Hilton George, I'm just going to go on the record. You can tell me to watch paint dry, and at this point, I'm going to do it. Because every time you have suggested something for me to watch, it has paid off in spades, honey. It is like, I'm loving it. Yes, it has been a fantastic joy. This show just started. We're only 3 episodes in. It is called The Man Who Fell to Earth. It is on Showtime. Showtime is doing it. I mean, they're doing The Man Who Fell to Earth. They're doing First Lady. They're doing a bunch of really good shows right now. But this one was kind of like a sleeper. Like, I had seen a preview for this show because I obviously am watching First Lady, and I'm watching, anytime Viola Davis graces the screen, I'm going to be there. But before every episode, if you set your DVR, they're smart over at Showtime. They're going to give you a preview to some of their other shows. And then when the show ends, you're going to get a preview to another. They're going to basically say, watch these, you got to. And so I had seen a preview and I was intrigued, but I just, that was kind of just like a blip, right? So then you come along and you put it in our famous chat. We've got a chat. Let me tell y'all, sometimes it's the dark hole to ridiculousness, but sometimes we do, sometimes we do productive things. Like, and he made the suggestion, we should watch this, and I was like, okay. I watched 1 episode, and I was there, and I cannot wait to see where this goes. I didn't even know how many episodes they've got for the season, but I cannot wait. So guys, just to give you a brief synopsis, we're going to take a semi deep dive only because we've only got 3 episodes, but we're going to talk about those 3 episodes and hopefully recruit you to watch. But basically, The Man Who Fell to Earth is about an alien being who falls to Earth, and he is instructed to take on human, he has to look like us and blend with us. And the gentleman, we can't even pronounce his name, but you guys know.
I feel so bad. Listen, I'm looking at his name right now on my screen, and I'm sitting there like,
Chiwetle.
Can I get it?
Chiwetle.
There you go. You did the best out of all 3 of us. That's good enough. He's a gentleman who was in the 12 Years a Slave, another movie that was phenomenal.
He's also a Marvel character. He's
Mordo in the Doctor Strange movie.
He's everywhere right now. But he basically is this alien who falls to Earth, and his name is Faraday, and the cool thing about this is that he is here to help save his planet, but also to help save ours. We instantly find out that we're on a trajectory where, we know how we've destroyed our Earth and how it's heating up, and but he basically, water is disappearing. And so he basically says by 2030, the Earth will be hot enough to where it will not be able to sustain life. But his planet is going through the same thing. There are only a couple thousand people left. And he was sitting down. And he has to find this girl. Her name is Justin Falls. So when you see Justin Falls, you instantly think it's a guy, but it ends up being another amazing actress. Naomi Harris is the second lead in this, and oh my gosh, guys, it's like one of those where they crack open the door and we're in the middle of this craziness. But what was your first impression? Because we literally were like, I was 2 episodes in and I was like, Christy, you got to watch it. And I was like, watch it immediately. And she was like, I'm on it. I'm watching it right now. And so I was like, perfect.
And I did.
You had to kind of watch the episodes, like 3 episodes really quickly. What did it do to you? Because I know what it did to me instantly.
Well, yeah, instantly it pulled me in. I mean, again, it was fascinating. Even just the opening scenes. I was like, just showing how he got here. Of course, it made me feel like the Matrix a little bit, but it is intense, and just how his body shaped and formed this skin that could survive on Earth, because they are where he comes from. It's a very different structure, I guess, body structure. I mean, he's got like 4 stomachs, something like that. It's bizarre.
Cat eyes, like it's different. Yeah,
it's just very different, the way they breathe, and they're used to being in fluids, and which is very interesting, because that's like prenatal reference, and so I loved it. I was sucked in. Again, it's another visually stunning. I'm a very visual person, so it's beautifully put together. The aesthetic of it is wonderful. I loved it. I wish I could say his name though. That's all I
Right. It is blast. We all need to take a class and say his name over and over 10 times.
Just to get it rolling off the tongue.
Yeah. Because he deserves for his name to be pronounced correctly.
Properly.
But this show is like a really cool mix of like tech, really cool mix of sci-fi. It's a little bit of horror elements. It's everything you would want. So Hilton, you recommended it to me. What made you say, let me tell them about this, because I think this would be something good for us to talk about?
So this is a remake of a movie from 1976 that starred David Bowie.
Get out of town.
Yeah, so David Bowie was the man who fell to Earth, and a lot of people didn't see it because it really was kind of, even for its time, kind of like a little indie type of a film, and it was more of a character study than this big story that is being cracked open for this series. But it is following a lot of the same trajectory, and so that immediately caught my eye. And I'm a big fan, like I said, of Chiwetel, and I just love everything he does. He's so intense. He's so focused. He just, there's no role that he's ever been in. He's been good in bad movies in the way Denzel is good in bad movies. So I just love watching him. So I was like, I'm going to give it a show. And it starts off, it's very much like, and be ready for this, if you remember this movie from the 80s called Starman, that had oh my God, what was his name? I didn't see that. Yes, Starman, and it had oh my God, I'm looking at him right now, and I'll remember his name later. But it was an 80s movie with it was just this amazing story of this guy who crash lands on Earth. He was following the signal to Earth and everything, and he's kind of his body, and he's learning the language and how to move.
Jeff Bridges.
Custom, yes, Jeff Bridges. And it's not a big arcing story, but he is this individual who comes to Earth, who is now going to be going up against government and corporation and society. And what I think they're going to do with this is going to be really interesting, is I think that they understand that there's an alien already here that summoned him, who was sent here before him to solve the problem that he's now coming to solve. And he basically met in a communique with him. We won't get too deep in the details, but he basically said, you can't come here and then just fix the technology and have it embraced. And then the world will rip itself apart. It'll rip you apart before it allows you to do this. You have to come and take over a company. You have to be corporate. You have to sell it. And in the beginning, the opening scene, before he even crashes to Earth, and you see all this, he's like a Steve Jobs type of tech guru at this big conference where he's doing a TED talk, and he is commanding the stage, and everyone's kind of like worshiping him like a Steve Jobs character. And he's leveraging this technology. So he's actually doing what we're watching him build up to doing in this opening scene, even though it doesn't have context. So they're going with a really interesting way of telling the story. Now, Justin Falls, who's played by Naomi Harris, is actually a scientist who came the closest of anybody on that planet to solving, and it's not even cold fusion. It's like it's the next most complicated
like
thing
quantum
beyond.
fusion or
it's
something.
Like quantum fusion, like something that we're not even like. That's whatever.
We were not even. We don't have the capacity for that yet.
So his job in finding her was saying, "Hey, look. If I find you, I have the missing components that will make this equation work and can make this thing you were talking about and working toward, that is the technology that will save your planet and mine, right? I need to find you because you've done all the work leading up to this point, and I can give you the components to make it work. And we're going to use the corporation as a way of manufacturing it and bringing it full scope because, again, he's not landing in front of the government and giving them all those tools because he knows that's not going to work. And so they're kind of moving, and he's got to convince her. She doesn't believe he's an alien.
He is like, hell no.
He can't even talk. He's like, just doing all this weird stuff.
He's annoying the crap out of her.
Yeah. And
can you imagine?
Yes.
Can you imagine? Like, I mean, he obviously doesn't know how to act like a human. He's not human, you know? And there are very key scenes where, like you said in that very beginning, where someone is saying you're going to have to seduce them in order to believe you, in order to follow you. And so he becomes, we obviously see where it's going. But like when he runs into Justin, she's like, who the hell are you? Like, basically, he acts so weird that he gets arrested. And he basically puts her down as the person to call. And so she comes and she's like, I've never met this person. Who is he? Like, it's so weird.
And he already knows who she is. And so he's got all good. He's like, you're a stalker. Like, you stay away from me.
A science stalker.
Right. Because she was like a big time scientist at one point. Yeah, and the thing that's really crazy is the introduction of Clark Peters. You may remember him from The Wire.
Her father.
And just an amazing actor who's been in a lot of stuff. Who plays Josiah Falls, her father. It kind of gets introduced to the story, but he's kind of a science guy too. But he never, she completely superseded him and just went on. Him coming into the story is like pivotal because she starts off when we meet her, she is buying drugs from a guy who's like a meth dealer or something, like a la West Virginia. I got a little packet of drugs. Here's, give me $50. Because she can't afford to pay for the drugs from the pharmaceutical. She can't pay for it because she doesn't have healthcare coverage. And we're making judgment on her because we're thinking we're thinking, because he's got an ailment. And we're thinking that she's buying drugs for herself. And we kind of make this judgment like, oh, dang, she's on drugs. Like, dang. But then she explains, I have to go and work so that I can get paid in cash so that I can go and buy these illegal drugs because the thing costs like $40 a day just to keep him level. And
or just to keep him from being like pain or whatever.
Right, exactly. So that's her struggle and that's her focus and that's her initial reason to not be interested in anything he's talking about, taking her cross country to do anything. She got a daughter to take care of. She's taking care of her bedridden father. And it's just like, she's like, I'm not trying to hear it.
I'm not hearing it.
Get out my face, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And he has to take these extraordinary measures to prove that how serious he is in order to move things forward. But it's really interesting to watch his sensibility, play out. Like, why do you want me to be quiet? Or you just said saying fuck and yelling is how you get things done. So everything he says is like, fuck, if you're like, why are you screaming? It's like, that's what you said, do. Like, he doesn't understand and he's learning quickly, but not
Yeah.
quickly enough for her. So
Yeah.
that transition is so amazing to watch. I mean, just in this last episode, he's in here like, you know, mimicking a parakeet
Yes.
that is mimicking, you know, curse words that
Yeah.
and so he's mimicking the curse words of the parrot in the middle of this cocktail party, and just fucking guy, fucking guy, fucking guy, fucking guy. Like you're like,
And he
yo,
doesn't know. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I love is that they really made him endearing. He's almost like a child.
very
And
much,
even
yes.
at some point, she even tells someone, like she tells a waitress because he's doing all these crazy things. She's like, oh, he's on the spectrum. So then, like, people are like, oh, okay, okay. And he doesn't know how to, he has no, like, way of communicating. And you're right. He finds Justin in, like, a very desperate time in her life, and basically she needs money, and he one of the coolest scenes was in that, you know, the first episode, where he basically bribes her. You know, he gives her money and says, just take me. And she's like, please. But he bribes her, and she knows she needs the money. She needs it to pay her dad's doctor bills, or, you know, the facility goes and does his PT. So she's like, okay, fine, I'll take you. And so they go to this remote location where he's supposed to get connection, and he's able to talk to that. I don't know. Was he an alien being, the Thomas Newton guy? Yeah. So he gets to
landed
talk
like
to,
in 1968 or something
like,
crazy like
yeah,
that.
like 45 years prior. And so he's talking to this Thomas Newton guy, but for her, she's witnessing a tornado, and she just sees him walking into the eye of the storm, and she's like, gets down in her truck, and she's screaming, and she's like she is completely freaked out. And then when it finally all stops, she comes up, and he's his actual alien form. Like, he's like, his skin is weird,
The
his
wind
eyes.
has blown the skin off
Yeah.
him, and it's healing, but not fast enough for
Yeah.
him to look normal standing there.
Yeah. And so you basically find out in that one scene where you finally, you know, you find out that the Thomas Newton guy had come down. He had tried to do this. It didn't work. He goes, but now you're here to take over, but you can't talk like a like, what did he say? You can't talk like a school child. You've got to like, you know, assimilate yourself to fit into this world. And it was just very interesting because it's like, I always wonder about these tech companies, and, you know, I'm very superstitious. And I'm always like, girl, you know, I'm always like, what are they really up to? What is really going on? And like these new phones and this, like, and they are literally like everything that is happening in this movie, they're seducing us with all of this technology and this cool stuff. And then we find out we're being listened to. And then we find out that, you know, we're being tracked, and we find out, like, it's like all of these things. So I'm like, so obviously Faraday is not doing that. He's trying to save the world. He's on a better mission. But Naomi is just, she's like the queen of like reacting. Like, she is just like, her basically meeting this alien, she gives the best facial reactions. Like, she doesn't know how to take it. She doesn't know what to do. She's like flustered. And so then we head to the final moment where he figures out, he gets himself to the point where he knows he has to go to this corporation, and they have the technology, or they at least have it somewhere, and he has to make contact. And it's, what is it called? Operation, or he has to get there. And so they meet, you know, so basically she's
Origin is the name of the company.
Origin. I was like, wait, what is it? I can't even think. Okay. So they know they have to go, and he's like, we have to go to Seattle. And she's like, I cannot go to Seattle. I cannot do this. Like, my dad is sick. My daughter is young. I can't just pick up. And we get like hints that something happened in her science career. That's why she's not really being a scientist anymore. Something has happened. And her dad like goes to bed, and he, like, you think he's gonna kill the guy, because he basically tells the dad, like,
I thought he was gonna kill him.
Yeah, you think like, okay,
you're holding your daughter back by living. The most productive thing you can do is die, so that she can. He has no sensibility around and his cultural, you know, he's not acculturated at all.
No.
And he's actually like saying what the father has been saying to himself. He's like, he's not lying.
It's totally
true. I've been
true.
holding my daughter back by being sick, and she has to take care of me instead of take care of herself.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to see him do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyways, he goes in to, like, you think he's going to strangle this man. But he takes that, whatever was wrong with him, he takes it out of him. And the next thing you see is he's on the ground. He's like, can we go to Seattle now? Like, it is just
He's
crazy.
doing a full Green Mile, on coffee thing. Yeah. He takes on the actual illness and then oozes it out of his body. And then it rises up and kind of goes out the exhaust fan out into the world.
Yeah.
And then, it was really, I thought he was going to kill him too. I was like, oh Lord.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for
this man.
I wasn't ready.
I don't know if we got permission to do all that.
I love how they intertwined. Again, I always love a good, I like to be informed, when I'm being entertained at the same time. And so I love the reality of, our American struggles with healthcare. And needless to say, I mean, it's just insane. The lengths that people have to go, or the depths that people have to go in order to just cover, for medication. And so it tackles that in, I think, a really unique way. And to show that this ailment could be removed from the father, really, and that helps to release her from her duty. I mean, it's just these incredible dynamics and just different, concepts, these familial concepts that we live in every day. And then on the greater scale, how we relate to big corporations, how we relate to the government, how secretive and how disgusting things can be. Yes. And it shows the difference. This is what I loved that they hinted at when they had that very soft moment between Faraday, which is really Faraday because he only copied the name off of the officer. That was the officer's name, and she was hysterical. She's somebody. She's a child actor. God, what's her name? And it was great to see her.
Yeah, she's Martha Plimpton. She was basically she was in the Goonies.
Yeah,
she was in the Goonies.
She's a
the female officer that he first meets.
She was the girl with the glasses. Okay, all right.
That's where he pulls the name from. He just repeats whatever he read on the on her name tag. So now that's his name. But the moment between him and the cow.
Yeah.
I just sat in that moment for a minute. And when he explains, the cow just doesn't know that she's bigger and faster and better and whatever, and on his planet, and that they actually have a ruling power that's different from what they are now. Because he's like, she'll be, the guy that's tending to the horse is like, if she's slow enough, she'll be used for paintball practice. And it's like the way he just communicates the differences. And again, I've said this before, we as not just humans, but as Americans in particular, think that we're at the center of the universe, and we fail to realize in every single day and moment that we are not. And there's so much more beyond. And I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to let y'all have it. The beauty of this show, though, what I really, really love, me, everybody says, why everything got to be about color? Because it is, because we got it. We see it. So I love that it shows Black people caring about science, about the planet, about our being sustainable, and, carrying on beyond today. Beyond today. Like, we are so far behind in taking care of the planet, but it's incredible. And when they bring in the Mesopotamian science and the Mayans and all of that.
It's a very, I think it's a very richly told story in that way.
Incredible.
I think the way they've done their research as to what would be a signature of an alien species coming to Earth, and what kind of math would they use?
Right.
And what kind of way would they approach science that would be immediately recognizable as alien or really, really weird to any normal mathematician or scientist who looks at it as like, no one's used this writing or these number forms or these math equations in like 3,600 years. So why is this the first time seeing? And he understands it. And he's actually writing formulas in it that's not normal. Like, what is going on? And it's not like in like The Day the Earth Stood Still, where he's just using really, really smart math that we understand. It's like, you don't even understand the math.
Yeah.
music.
The math ain't
Like
math.
you gotta,
Right.
right, exactly. Right.
For us
You
average
literally,
folk.
the math ain't mathing is the theme, the central thesis of the technology.
But
see, the other-
they know. She knows instantly. Justin's like, where did you get
That's
this?
something.
Who
Yeah,
did
exactly.
this? Like she knows, you know.
Now the guy who's playing that character, the brother of the
Hatch.
sister who's running the corporation,
Yes.
Blood.
I love him.
He is so much of the reality check that when he comes in episode 3
Yes.
and really draws a line and says, "Hey guys, listen, you can't just come in and dump, a science that's sustainable, renewable energy that just puts the oil industry and gas industry and nuclear
when he
industry
started
off
rattling
the back."
that off,
And he started talking about the markets crashing and economies
Oh.
crashing and wars between nations and civil uprisings in certain parts of the country. And he's doing it in sequence, like this is happening. But that was his job.
He sees it all.
His whole job was
Risk
risk assessment
management.
for
Risk
an energy
management.
company. So this is stuff that was probably been in his mind. And he was just like rattling it off. And it was like, you know what? That's absolutely right. There's no way you could just kind of dump free energy on this planet, and then everyone will go, "Yay, free energy! We can save the planet." No, people in power will lose power. People with money will lose money. Countries will lose their influence. He said, and then he said it like this. He says, "Yeah, all of a sudden, forget about the Saudis." Yeah, exactly. Like all of a sudden, they're completely irrelevant. Like what would happen in a world where Saudi Arabia was no longer a regional superpower? So he's
he
like,
knows.
Yeah,
he knows how we are as
that.
humans. We'll just like it goes back to like what you said, Christy, like where they didn't like he realized that this guy who was handling that farm animal, how he just didn't even respect it. We don't respect progress and we don't respect like once we're done with something, we just kick it to the curb. And we've seen it. Like it's like almost like the history of this country where we just use it up and throw it away.
Well, they said it in the story. They literally articulated it and said, even though by 2030 the world will have turned and the temperature will have risen above the level of sustainability, humankind does not turn on a dime until the backs are against the wall and until all the chips are out.
Crazy.
And we're going to get to that point, and they're going to have this technology available to turn to when we hit that moment.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we need to go and do it, even if people are going to wait to the last second before ultimate catastrophe is upon us. It still needs to be there as one of the opportunities and one of the choices. And I thought that was really insightful because you've seen that in other movies that talk about this type of scenario that we're like that. Like we don't change until we are this close from annihilation. And then we go, oh, maybe not.
And then we cry.
Right.
And then we're like,
we wait till we're at Station 11 or Gilead before we start to go, oh, we need to fight or we need to survive.
I should have voted. I could have prevented this. I could have like participated. Yeah, it's all crazy. Well, one thing that surprised me that it was episode 2. It was not even on my radar. I am just sitting there minding my business, watching this wonderful show. And I'm like, hold up, because there's a couple villains in the series. So yeah. Kat Milgrove, you guys know her from Orange is the New Black. You know her from Star Trek, The Next Gen.
Voyager.
Yes, you know her from all. She's just a wonderful, wonderful actress. Seeds are planted that she's going to be the villain. She basically knows, like they start getting hints that there's this communication and this happened 45 years ago. It was unexplainable. Maybe this technology that they're hiding is something we can use as a weapon. Like she just goes right there. And so she hires this guy. It's an actor by the name of Jimmy Simpson. His name is Spencer Clay in the series, to go and find the one man. There's one man that's living that met this alien 45 years ago. And so she sends him into like this, in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
I think it was Alaska.
Somewhere in Alaska, hidden. Like there's obviously a recluse man that is hiding out and he gets captured. And we're like, oh, shoot, what's happening? And the next thing you know, he wakes up and his mouth is, taped and he's tied up on a chair. And guess who the actor was? There's this crazy guy torturing him. It is Paul Freeman. Paul Freeman, who played Ivan Ooze in my movie, in Power Ranger movie. I was like, he was playing so crazy that I didn't recognize him at first. Like, I was like,
I know I didn't.
It took me like, it took me like 10 minutes. And guys, Paul Freeman is... This man is such an accomplished actor. I mean, he has been on the stage, the London stage. He has been, I mean, he was an excellent villain, obviously, in Power Rangers, but he was even more excellent before he got to us. He was in, what is it?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, he is one of those character actors that you will never forget. And he is the gentleman who talked to, Thomas Newton 45 years ago. And he's the only one who knows that that there are aliens, and they, he's completely freaked out because I don't know what exactly happened, but whatever happened, it went wrong and it drove him crazy.
Yeah.
So just the thought that someone is searching for him, he knows it's trouble. And you think he's going to kill this guy, but he ends up killing himself. That's how freaked out he is. About all of it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was like such a nugget to like, I was like I called every person I know and was like,
me.
Paul Freeman, I know. Like, you gotta watch it. Episode 2, the crazy guy. And they were like, what? And so people were like, everybody's watching the show because of that. But you know what? It lays the groundwork for some really cool villains that are coming because they know that their contact has been made. And they know something is happening, and they know it's at origin. And so you already know. You guys know how this world is. I mean,
we've seen it before.
You see someone with a little bit of power, and then all of a sudden they are going to try to, take over the world and tear it up. So,
and Jimmy Simpson is playing Spencer Clay, the crazy guy. He's like the CIA operative guy who kind of.
He was bullied as a child.
Yeah, like
he's so mean.
The Drew Finch character that Kate is playing is kind of like his mentor or whatever, but she knows how crazy he is.
Right.
But she knows she can use that crazy for what she wants. But they kind of got this pseudo xenophobic white supremacist vibe. It's weird because
it's almost like a mother lover vibe.
But like you saw it when they were in the restaurant and taking the order, and he's like torturing the waitress with nothing, like lying about the order. No, I asked for lemons. No, I asked for limes. Are you stupid?
Right.
Da, 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 da. But he's like so polite, and it's not like this foaming at the mouth racism. It's not blatant, but it's just this general America first. We have to protect our identity type of attitude that's fueling all this mendacity. It's so crazy.
It's so timely, though.
And so for him, they're setting this guy up as someone like, if he hates anyone who's other, because apparently it's not just about white, because he done went against Ukraine people, which they're white, and so it's not just color. It's anyone other than American.
Walks up. Well, he's looking for the Paul Freeman character. He walks up and kills a butterfly for no reason.
Just to fix. He's like that kind of a
sociopath.
Exactly, he's a sociopath. And so you can just imagine, like, as he's realizing that what he's dealing with is not just some crazy old man who saw technology he didn't understand.
Yeah.
But it's dawning on him that this is alien technology, and they actually had an alien in custody or whatever, and they tortured him, and they were trying to get the keys to this technology. And you see him slowly clicking in his head, like, as much as I can't even stand white people from Europe coming to America, you talking about you got people from another planet coming here.
Right.
He is like, give me this assignment. Give me a budget. I will take care of this. I want it. And she's like, look, I see that look in your eyes. I've seen this before. This is going to eat you up. You got that white whale syndrome, that whole Captain Ahab syndrome. It's a real syndrome. Like, you go crazy. And he's like, no, I got this, whatever.
He's already crazy.
So, so we have met the villain that's going to show up and be causing trouble throughout this series. And he is expertly played. Like, this dude is tortured.
Yeah, he's really
weird.
At doing this.
He's crawling in his own skin. You just, oh my God. It's going to be really interesting to see these two play up against each other.
Yeah, their energy. Yeah, I said it a moment ago, and it was kind of down low, but their energy was very. You said the word creepy. because I was like,
Creepy.
she's like a mama, but they're in love with each other. It was weird. I couldn't tell. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't really know who this is. Who is he meeting at the restaurant? Who's the 911 cheesecake? And their energy, their exchange, and how, and again, even how they continued out in the wilderness on a bench.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, they have this thing. It's their sexual tension, but she's again very much like a mother figure to him. So again,
Mm-hmm.
he's the weirdo. He's the kid that, you know, didn't shoot the school up, so now he's gonna like
Yeah.
ruin the
We're gonna
world.
shoot something up.
Right.
Yeah, he's
Well,
gonna ruin the world.
Well, you
So he
even
can-
saw like after the guy kills himself, like he stays in that room and like to the point where there's flies on
that
this
doesn't
dead
even,
man.
yeah, that
It had
doesn't
been flies don't come immediately. Like that happens within days. Like this body is decomposing and he's just in that room, just in there and just
Searching the house
for
casually
stuff
for stuff and
yeah, it's so crazy. But these are two amazing actors. I mean, I fell in love with Kate with Orange is the New Black. Like she was next level acting. Just, I mean, so when I saw her in this, I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. And when I figured out she was going to be bad, I was like, oh yeah. You know? But jumping ahead in the third episode, Hatch finally gets on board. They finally convince him. And it's funny because they allude that Hatch always kind of, you know, he had like a fascination with Origin and he knew something was going on. He knew the minute when he went back to the hotel to kind of talk to them, he goes, the only other person I ever knew who knew something about this was not of this earth. So you better tell me the truth. And so they tell him. She basically says, come on in. And the next thing you know, it's like black screen. And then he's waking up because
he passed out.
he passes out because it's too much. Like it's just too much to take. But needless to say, he gets on board and he kind of says, look, the only way we can do this is we're going to have to go to London. We're going to have to present this with all these billionaire corporations, and then they'll fight to give us money so that we can make it happen. And so it's just, it's such good, like, it's such a cool sci-fi kind of situation.
Yep.
But there's also such good, like, story, like Hatch and his sister, they have like this, like, I mean, they basically are they hate each other, like the sister
very
got left
little
the
love,
company,
very
yeah,
little
and even though he's passionate about certain things, she feels like that's jealousy. Like, I mean, it's really like crazy, their dynamic. And Justin, I mean, she's obviously, you know, that she's like this scientist that he goes, you know, because she basically makes a deal with him and says, hey, you know, I'll help you do this, but you have to leave the blueprint behind so that whatever you do to save your world, I can save ours. And he's like, if I'll do that if you become a scientist again. Like, he basically says, I need you to come back to this. And so
the world needs her. The world needs more like her. And I think that's really encouraging. I mean, it was, you know, tack on to like, she's a hidden figure, but she's hiding herself. She has done it, but somebody that they're obviously we'll get to. I'm hoping they're going to give us some background and show us, you know, give us a visual of whatever happened to her in science and show us why. And again, how she became, you know, now this tucked away recluse. Well, coming back out, reemerging. But I have to say something about Hatch. What I loved about him is
favorite character. I love him so much.
Yeah, this is, and in contrast, what's funny is I've struggled a little bit with how long it's taking Justin to come around. Girl, get it togetger. You saw the man face peel off.
It's like she doesn't want to believe it. Like she's just like,
and I get that. She's slowly developing. Well, Hatch, on the other hand, it didn't take nothing but 5 minutes for him to develop real quickly. Because remember his opening scene, he's clean cut dress to the T, and he's giving grief to this presenter in their book club preparation room or whatever. And it's like, he's kind of an asshole. Well, he loses he begs and pleads. And of course, his sister is ruthless.
Yeah, she's
has
ruthless.
No care for him whatsoever. But once he loses everything, and it's funny because it's not really funny, haha, but funny. He has shingles. And money doesn't remove you or make you exempt from the struggle. So now you have this elder Black father and this daughter trying to provide, and it doesn't have health care. And then you've got this rich white guy who was
used to be rich.
Used to be
rich, yeah.
Right. But even while he was rich, even that, no amount of clothing or money could remove that pain from you, for real. Like shingles is shingles. You just, you know, and it's painful no matter how wealthy you are or what color your skin is. And so he develops really quickly, and he turns into his, you know, this really, you know, down to earth, straightforward, because now it's almost like that's all I got is my beliefs in this science, beliefs in the possibilities. And he is hilarious. Like, I love his personality in this so much. Who is the actor, Karen? I know you're looking it up.
Rob Delaney is his name.
Rob Delaney.
Yes.
Well, see, his character and Naomi are actually on two separate trajectories. So she's trying not to leave what she has. She has decided that she's got a stake in her father's health, stake in her daughter's development, and she's the provider, and she's given up everything to be that. He has already lost everything, and he lost it for this exact thing. Remember, the reason why he got fired was because he came across these secret documents from the previous alien who had given the technology to his father that stole it and patented it and hid it away. And he was like, and he was being accused of trying to sell it to competition. But what he was doing is like, I don't understand this. So I was sharing it with other people in science. So maybe I would find out what the hell it is, because I know that we didn't develop it and we have a patent on it, but we don't understand it. It didn't come from us. I want to know where it came from. And so she kind of twisted that around and probably used it as a way to get rid of him. Totally. But he stumbled into this. And so when she showed him the cuneiform writing and the hieroglyphics and all that, that's where he had seen it before, was because he saw those original documents. He's like, I've seen that before. Why do you have it? Like, you know, this, I got fired. I lost my life. I lost my money. I lost my position because I was researching this. Now you're telling me you have the source for it and it's standing right there outside my car. So once he realizes that he was always kind of right, and he has a chance, and you see him try to do this, to use this as a way to maybe reconcile with his sister and maybe get himself back into the position he was in. He tried to do that, but it didn't quite work, at least not initially. And so he once he realizes this is a way forward, he leverages all of his contacts.
He calls in every favor.
Every favor he's got to get them in that room, because he knows, you know, and that's why I think he turns over so quickly. Whereas, you know, Naomi is kind of like,
she's in a different state.
We're going to find out why she doesn't want to do science anymore. And once we find out what that is, we'll probably have a better understanding about her reluctance to embrace this entire scenario up until now, because it's like, I really don't want to be bothered with any of this. And especially being a scientist again, because I left for a reason, but we, the audience, don't know what that is yet.
Right. I just feel like we are going to, like, what is intriguing me right now is that, like you said, Naomi's past is going to come back, and it's going to play a huge part in the story some way. And I feel like that sister, I don't want to trust her just yet, because she seems so evil, like, to her brother, and just so cut off. Like, she almost is like one of those people who's like emotionally cut off. So I feel like, you know, obviously when he holds up the technology and it's just floating and it starts lighting up the whole city, the whole room is like, you know,
I was trying to figure out what was happening. I was sitting there like, I didn't see the device, but then I started seeing the city, the lights started
lighting up.
Oh, man,
that was the source. And so obviously he wows them and wows her, and they're probably, you know, going to start working with her, and she's going to help them. But I feel like, just like from her character and just the way they've kind of introduced her, it's not going to be so easy. Like, she's probably going to, you know, I don't know. I just am excited. Like, we're only 3 episodes in, and I just looked it up. There are going to be 10 episodes. So I cannot wait.
And can I say, I want to piggyback off what Christi said earlier.
Yes.
I think one of the reasons why we are so excited, the people in this room, is because of that representation. You know, this story could have very easily been told with any race or any background, but it's so rare to see Black characters centered in a sci-fi story like this, and done so well by a major studio like Showtime. And it's smart,
Yes.
it's well written, it's well acted, and it's not on the nose. I mean, we're not
No.
coming in and they're like blackety blackety black. It's just like, okay,
No.
we're just going to show you that Black people can be in these character positions as much as any white person would be, or Asian or anyone else, and still tell the story without there being any like sense of, oh, this story's weird because there's Black people playing
Right.
aliens and scientists
Right.
and all this sort
Well,
of stuff. So
I remember growing up and like Halle Berry was the it girl. Remember, like in the early
Mm-hmm.
90s and late 80s, early 90s. And she used to always say, she goes, I don't understand Hollywood because it's always like there are all of these amazing roles out there. And she goes, it doesn't have to be written for a Black woman to play it. Like, I'm a human, I'm a woman. I can play any role. Like that was her
mhm.
biggest gripe, and it was true. Like like this Justin Falls could have been any body. There is nothing that ties her race to the, it's just this is the direction they went. And like you said, the representation and just the, I mean, we you know, our participation in sci-fi has always been very minimal, and I don't ever understand that, like, you know. But I just think it's so much more dynamic. Like it's almost like when you think back at like Nichelle Nichols, it was so much more
Mhm.
dynamic for her
Yep.
to be, you know, in Star
In
Trek.
space.
And
Yeah.
it just was so much more dynamic. She was beautiful and sexy, and she was smart, and she was a captain. You know, this was a time when Black women only played prostitutes, maids, or other things. You know, we were never in a leader role, or, and so it's one of those things where I feel like it's long overdue. And I agree,
Yep.
Naomi is, I mean, the whole cast, it's
Yeah.
amazing. But yeah, if you like, I mean, you know how we are. We love television series that have dynamic characters, have dynamic stories. If you like sci-fi, even if you like a little touch of, I don't even know that there's just like a little bit of elements of horror, just because it's like things you can't explain, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little Green Mile-ish healing things. I mean, it's just, it's got it all.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
definitely good. I
And
think
And
I just want to
yes.
comment on something you just said, Karen, when you talked about how, again, the space has been historically so limited for us, people of color in sci-fi. And I think, I'm just guessing here, but we kind of talked about it when we were talking about Black Panther, and we talked about, you know, dressing up for cons and things of that nature. When I remember touching on this, and I feel like it applies here too. It's just one of those things where I feel like we're so otherworldly, or treated as so otherworldly so much. And I think that on a global scale, I don't know if we don't want to be bothered, or we have gone through it. Some of us have broken through, and they've been the anomalies up until this point. And now it's becoming a little more, you know, commonplace. Like this is, yeah, I believe in aliens. I believe in otherworldly. I know we're not the center of the universe.
Right.
I was the one who got super excited. This is how geeky I feel like I am. I'm the one who got super excited at the end of whichever Men in Black it was, and the aliens are playing marbles with all the planets, and Earth is like not even that big. Like you can't even. We're
right,
so small. But even on
Yeah.
right.
a real
Yeah.
scientific level, look it up. People
Yeah.
Google it. We are tiny, tiny,
Mhm.
and it's like,
Mhm.
you know, we do believe in that, and it is more commonplace than most think.
I just
So
feel
we
like
just
there's
gotta want
so
to see
many.
it.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so many things that are so unexplainable. Like
Right.
let's talk about like we talked about like the pyramids. Like there wasn't even tools or technology that was even around to explain that. Like to this day, we can't build anything that perfect. Like
Right.
we build skyscrapers, buildings, this, that, like the way that they're positioned, their direction towards the sun, the way that, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things, like for something like that to have happened in
How
Africa.
in the
And
world?
yeah, and it's like there's always, I mean, there's always so many unexplainable things. So I've always loved sci-fi for that reason,
We
because
could
it
do
dips
a
into the unexplainable.
exactly, and that is, we could have a whole show on the
Oh yeah.
unexplained, and
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
I am
I'm
here for it.
Let's
I'm
do
telling
it.
you
Let's
that
do
like
it.
ufology and, you know, Egyptian religion and, you know, lost societies. That was my
Yeah.
hobby growing up. You know, I like
Oh,
really dug deep at a time. I mean, I'm like 13, 12, reading books like the Sign and the Seal by Graham Hancock, and Chariots of the Gods by von Däniken, and so I was always into this. I was into ghosts and cryptids and all this sort of stuff. Very fascinating stuff, because we are admitting that we do not know what we don't know.
Exactly.
And so the fact that we can look at the pyramids, or we can look at Stonehenge, and even to this day say that, wait a minute, maybe our chronology of our own history, and I know we're going down a rabbit hole here, but our chronology of our history is not correct, because how in the world could a society build something like the pyramids or build something like Stonehenge at a time before we believed that man had the wheel? So, how do these leapfrogs, these jumps in technology and development happen from, 5,000 years ago to 6,000 years ago to whatever? Because we don't really know how old the pyramids are.
And you know what makes me so mad? We're so arrogant that people will dig their heels in. The education system, or the education system that they feed us, is so arrogant that they're like, no, it had to be like this, and no, it had to do, they just won't even take the time. And I feel
nobody makes money. Nobody makes money off the question. You don't get your doctoral dissertation in Egyptology and get to be the curator of the Cairo Museum by saying, we don't really know how old these are. No, you're like, no, Tutmosis II was the one who built this, and Khufu, Khephren, and Cheops built these, and during these years, you have to come and say what you think even if you don't know, you got to be certain. Yeah. And that's why the establishment is like, we're just going to default to an answer and stick to it, as opposed to keeping asking the question and letting it be as open as science basically says it is.
Yeah. Well, you know what we need to do? We do need to do a show like that. But I'm going to be the student in the show, because I have so many questions, and I'm so fascinated. I think that's why I was so fascinated with just Egypt and just the mummification of bodies, and the fact that they're still intact. We to this day cannot replicate that. There's so many questions surrounding all of that we will never probably have the capacity to answer. And so yes, I'm down for that.
Too many sarcophagi to untangle.
Our dictionary, Mr. Hilton, the smarty pants.
I was like, she's gonna sneak that in there. She doesn't talk about Egypt. It's coming. It's coming.
I was waiting on it to pop up again.
I know. You used it in a sentence. Well, you did more than I could. You did more than I could.
Lots of sarcophagi.
For those of you who don't know, in a past episode, he used sarcophagi. We were talking about Moon Knight, and we just were like, hold up. Me and Christy realized how dumb we are compared to how limited our vocabulary is compared to Hilton's.
I just would have been like, it's a bunch of mummies.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, guys, thank you for watching the BOP, the BLERD official podcast. If you have not watched The Man Who Fell to Earth, you have to. You just have to. Give it a chance. It is so phenomenal. It is so phenomenal. And we love you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Tune in every Tuesday for a new episode of the BOP, the BLERD official podcast.